Akallabêth, The Downfall of Numenor, Part 2. King Ar-Pharazon has just seized the crown. He's described as the mightiest and the proudest of all the kings and queens of Numenor before him, and he broods darkly, thinking of war, because those returning from sea voyages to Middle-earth tell him that Sauron is gathering his might and trying to drive out all Númenorian presence on the continent. Sauron has declared himself king of men, and that he is the enemy of Numenor. Well, Ar-Pharazon doesn't like that, so he builds up weapons, ships, and military, and he sails with them all into the east to declare war on Sauron. They go to Umbar, march inland for about a week, and set up camp. Then Ar-Pharazon commanded Sauron to come before him and swear him fealty. He intends to make Sauron his vassal, basically, and Sauron actually shows up without any intention of battle because he can see that the power of the kings of the sea would crush him and his servants in an instant. But he was crafty, well skilled to gain what he would by subtlety when force might not avail, and he seemed fair and wise. So, Ar-Pharazon brings him back to Numenor in order to keep a close watch on him. But Sauron actually likes this because he feels it'll allow him to work his evil from within. And 3 years pass, and Sauron by this time is essentially Ar-Pharazon's closest advisor. For flattery sweet as honey was ever on his tongue, and knowledge he had of many things yet unrevealed to men. And Sauron starts corrupting everyone, except the faithful, of course. He gets people to forget everything that the Valar had taught them, and he tells the king that Ilúvatar is a false god, and that the Valar have been lying the whole time regarding his nature, so as to chain men in servitude. Sauron then says that Melkor is the real lord of all, the true giver of freedom, and he claims that darkness is the only thing worth worshipping, because the Lord of Darkness, Melkor, will give untold rewards to men who follow him. So Ar-Pharazon starts worshipping Melkor, and most of the people follow suit, except the faithful. There's a guy called Amandil, Lord of Andúnie, and he's not falling for any of this, nor is his son Elendil or his grandsons Isildur and Anarion. You might remember some of those names from The Lord of the Rings. Well, all the faithful look to Amandil as their leader, and they all gather from across the land in the city of Romenna. Amandil and his son Elendil are great ship captains. And Amandil had actually been friends with Pharazôn when they were young, and he remained on the king's council until he gets dismissed after Sauron arrives. So that's some background information. Meanwhile, Sauron tries to get Ar-Pharazôn to cut down the white tree Nimloth, but the king won't do it because he believes that the tree's fate is actually bound to the fate of Númenor. Nevertheless, one night, Isildur sneaks over to the tree and grabs a fruit from it. Now, the tree is being heavily guarded because Sauron had ordered that no one be allowed near it, so this is a tricky and dangerous task that Isildur has undertaken. The guards catch him and attack him, but he escapes unrecognized because he was in disguise. And he gives the fruit to Amandil, who plants it in secret. And the next spring, it grows into a small shoot. And that's a good thing, too, because after that, Ar-Pharazôn finally gives in to Sauron's lies and cuts down the tree. And that's really the beginning of the end, because afterwards, Sauron has a great golden temple built in the middle of Armenelos. It's dedicated to Melkor, and Sauron burns the wood of the white tree in a great fire in the temple's altar. Then the people begin to burn a fire there day and night, and they start performing human sacrifices, mostly of members of the faithful. So this is really just an egregious place of great wickedness. It's just all bad. And the ironic thing is, the people worship Melkor thinking that he's going to grant them eternal life. And because of all this evil, the people's lives actually become shorter and shorter. It used to be that when they grew old, they died willingly and peacefully. Now people are just committing murders, they're quick to anger, Sauron's fueling it, and everyone is terrified of death more than ever. It's a real horror show. And yet they actually think everything's fine, because they're increasing their riches at the expense of the people of Middle-earth. They make wars on those people and steal their possessions. They just terrorize everyone there. And the memory of the kindly kings of the ancient days faded from the world and was darkened by many a tale of dread. So by now, Ar-Pharazôn has become the biggest tyrant the world has ever seen since Morgoth. That's really saying something. When he grows old, he becomes fearful and wrathful, and it's then that Sauron makes his move. He convinces Ar-Pharazôn that his power is so great that no ban can control him. Sauron says that the Valar are jealously guarding immortality in the Undying lands, keeping it away from men, and that Ar-Pharazôn should take what is his rightful due. So, the king starts thinking about how he can make war on the Valar. And somehow Amandil gets wind of this, and he tells his son Elendil that he's planning on sailing to Valinor and asking the Valar for help, just like how Eärendil, their ancestor, did. He tells Elendil to gather as many of the faithful as he can in ships and to get ready to sail away to the east when push comes to shove, because the doom of Númenor is at hand and they need to be able to escape. Amandil then sails into the west, but he's never heard from again. And meanwhile, Elendil's people bring onto their ships great treasures, including the shoot from the White Tree, and the 7 stones. In other words, the Palantiri, the seeing stones that were gifts from the Eldar. So they just wait there off the eastern coast, ready for any sign that will tell them it's time to go. But no sign comes, only Ar-Pharazôn's ships that are preparing for war off the western coast. Now, throughout the history of Numenor, the weather had always been pretty perfect, but lately, great storm clouds have been gathering in the west and coming over the land, pummeling it with rain and lightning. Some people briefly repent out of fear. They're scared that the clouds are from Manwë himself, while others become even more hardened and stubborn against the Valar, especially the king, who just shakes his fist at the sky. But the lightning starts smiting people, and it tears the rooftop of the Temple of Melkor in 2, though it doesn't destroy the whole temple. I mean, these are just warnings from the west, but the men don't take heed. So, Ar-Pharazôn's giant armada of ships gathers off the western coast of Númenor, ready to set sail towards Valinor. The eagles of the Valar come flying over the horizon towards the ships, and the sky turns red. But Ar-Pharazôn hardens his heart and gives the command to set sail. And so they row and sail into the forbidden seas, thus breaking the ban of the Valar, going up with war against the deathless, to wrest from them everlasting life within the circles of the world. Their ships surround Tol Eressëa, which must be a pretty freaky sight to the elves living there. Then they finally get to the coast, and momentarily, even Ar-Pharazôn feels the urge to turn back, but pride overtakes him, and the men set foot upon the land and set up camp on the hill of Tuna. All the elves have fled inland by now, by the way, and Manwë calls upon Ilúvatar himself, who causes a great chasm to form in the sea between Aman and Númenor. And the waters flowed down into it, and the noise and smoke of the cataracts went up to heaven, and the world was shaken. And the fleets of the Numenoreans were drawn down into the abyss, and they were drowned and swallowed up forever. But Ar-Pharazôn the king and the mortal warriors that had set foot upon the land of Aman were buried under falling hills. There it is said that they lie imprisoned in the caves of the forgotten until the last battle and the day of doom. So now the Undying lands are removed and separated from men forever. Ilúvatar has placed them beyond the reach of anyone who doesn't have permission to sail there. They're now in the realm of hidden things, and new lands, rivers, and seas are formed in Middle-earth from this great cataclysm. And meanwhile, Númenor is utterly destroyed, along with everyone in it. Fire shoots out of the Meneltarma, its foundations are overturned, and it sinks into the sea without a trace. Even the queen, Tarmiriel, who tries to escape to the top of the mountain, is swallowed up by the great waves. And almost all the greatness of that civilization is gone, just like the lost city of Atlantis. However, Elendil and his people are completely spared from harm, and they're able to escape in their ships by a great wind from the west. 9 ships there were, 4 for Elendil, and for Isildur 3, and for Anarion 2. And they fled before the black gale out of the twilight of doom into the darkness of the world. They go through great waves and storms until they finally land on the shore of Middle-earth. And this would be the time that Elendil says in Quenya, "Out of the great sea to Middle-earth I am come. In this place will I abide, and my heirs unto the ending of the world." In The Return of the King, in the chapter titled The Steward and the King, Aragorn recites this exact line right before he's crowned. Yeah, so there you go. That's where it comes from. And indeed, Elendil and his heirs establish kingdoms in Middle-earth, which carry on just some of the ancient greatness of Numenor before it was corrupted. And meanwhile, Sauron has definitely had the fear put into him, because he is actually taken by surprise when Numenor is destroyed. His physical body is swallowed up by the sea, leaving his spirit no choice but to fly back to Mordor. And after this, he's never able to appear fair and beautiful to people ever again. And once he goes back to Barad-dûr, he takes up his great ring, and we'll see the details of its making in the next chapter, and he uses its power to eventually form a new shape, the Eye of Sauron. Anyway, all the Númenorian exiles who've escaped to Middle-earth dearly miss their beloved homeland. Some of them believe that maybe the top of the Meneltarma was not submerged forever, but it's risen up as a lonely island lost in the great waters. This is because the Dunedain still fear death and yearn for a happier time when one could look out from the mountain and view the Undying lands in the distant west. Therefore, even though everyone knows that the world is changed and that Aman lies beyond anyone's reach, some mariners still sail out and try to find the Meneltarma and seek a vision of things that were, but they all come back empty-handed, some having even circumnavigated the entire world. How can they do this? Well, this used to be impossible because remember, Arda's surface used to be flat. Well, after the fall of Numenor, Iluvatar actually turns the surface of Arda into a completely round globe. So now only elves who sail into the west are somehow magically able to cross a hidden pathway to Aman. This magic path is called the Straight Road, and it's kind of like a bridge into the air beyond the sky, though still within the confines of the world. And tales and rumors arose along the shores of the sea concerning mariners and men forlorn upon the water, who, by some fate or grace or favor of the Valar, had entered in upon the straight way, and seen the face of the world sink below them, and so had come to the lamplit quays of Avalone, or verily to the last beaches on the margin of Aman, and there had looked upon the white mountain, dreadful and beautiful, before they died.